Hello and welcome to another painting video. In this video, I'll be painting the Marshcrawla Sloggoth. This amazing model is a fine addition to my Kruleboyz army. I went with a pale green looking troll which I could see living in a dark, gross swamp. While painting, I actually regretted gluing the troll to the base, so I can recommend leaving it off the base while you work on it. Let's begin, shall we? As always, I start with either the biggest area of the model or the deepest layer so I don't have to fix it while working on something else. I paint the skin with Ogryn Camo. Next, I shade the skin with Athonian Camoshade. Unfortunately, I don't have footage of me reapplying the Ogryn Camo. I did leave the shade in the recesses. After this, I paint Krieg Khaki as a highlight, but also as a layer the lower I go on the limbs. I use a mix of Krieg Khaki and Pallid Wych flesh to layer the limbs even more. I do still use this mix as a highlight on the torso. I highlight the skin with Pallid Wych flesh. To bring more life in the Sloggoth, I shade the areas which have more blood flow and wear and tear with Reikland Flesh Shade. His face, elbows, knees, hands and feet for instance. These areas I also highlight with Kislev Flesh. This is a solid base for a pale green Sloggoth. You can use glazes to further highlight the skin or shade, but I'm going to continue with some small details. After painting the gums with Wraithbone, I paint them with Voluptuous Pink. All the teeth, tusks and horns found on the model I paint with Ushabti Bone. Then I shade them with Skeleton Horde. And finish with a highlight of Screaming Skull. The nails on the claws I paint with Dawnstone. Then I shade them with Basilicanum Grey. And highlight them with Administratum Grey. The eyes I paint with White Scar. It's not an easy reach, but you can always fix any mistakes later on. I glaze the eyes with Lamenters Yellow. The Sloggoth is coming along nicely. I afterwards painted the bags under his eyes with Incubi Darkness as it was missing something. The eyes looked a little bit too flat. This Sloggoth doesn't wear much apparel, but he has a fancy loincloth. I paint this with Mournfang Brown. Then I shade the loincloth with Biel-Tan Green. This gives the brown leather a dirty, mossy look. The first highlight I paint is Scrag Brown. And the second highlight I paint is Deathclaw Brown. As you can see, I painted the highlights in a sketchy feathering way. I personally love the look of it, but maybe a more straightforward way of highlighting might suit you better. I'm painting any wood I can find on the model with Dryad Bark. Next, I find anything metal and paint that with Iron Hands Steel. The small pile of loot I paint with Sycorax Bronze. The pillow underneath the platform is painted with Deathclaw Brown. Now I'm going to shade everything I painted with Agrax Earthshade. This also includes the wood and the pillow. Next, I use Reikland Fleshshade to wash the metal parts. This gives the metal a dirty and rusty look. Time for highlighting. First, I highlight the wood with Baneblade Brown. Then I'm going to add rust to the metal. First, I dot Scrag Brown to random parts on the metal. I repeat the previous step with Troll Slayer Orange. Then I use a piece of foam with Runefang Steel to apply this on the metal. This creates a highlight and breaks up the rust I just painted. I reapply Deathclaw Brown back on the pillow to bring back the original color. I highlight the pillow with Kislev Flesh. And finally, I paint the stitches with Black Templar. Another big part of the model is done. Really looks run down and ill-maintained, which is perfect for something goblins would use. All the ropes holding the platform together are painted with Wraithbone. This is because I want to use a contrast paint. I'm using Snakebite Leather here. The rock dragging beneath the Sloggoth is painted with Dawnstone. And shaded with Basilicanum Grey. Two simple ways, but effective. The ropes are everywhere on this model, but you don't want them distracting from the Sloggoth itself. There are some trophies on the rack. These I paint with Rakarth Flesh. Next, I shade them with Druchii Violet. I reapply Rakarth Flesh back on the trophies to get a pale looking skin. I highlight the trophies with Pallid Switch Flesh. Lastly, I apply Blood for the Blood God to make them look more grisly. The skin of the Goblins I paint with a mix of Celestra Grey and Ulthan Grey. Then I shade them with Druchii Violet. I reapply the base mix, leaving the shade in the recesses. Then I highlight the skin with Ulthan Grey. I use the glaze Guilliman Blue to add shadow to the lower parts of the model. I apply Bloodletter to the nose, ears, knuckles, and elbows. The drum skin is painted with Kislev Flesh. And then shaded with Reikland Fleshshade. Then I reapply Kislev Flesh in random patterns. I highlight with Flayed One Flesh. And here we have the Marshcrawla Sloggoth and his goblin crew. I had fun painting this model because it's one disturbing looking troll. Also, the idea of the troll having to lug around that huge platform is just bonkers. A truly unique model in an already pretty great line of weird orc models, the Kruleboyz deliver. Next time I'll be back explaining how I paint my swamp bases and which materials I use and how I build them. Stay tuned. In the meantime, be sure to check out my Instagram where I post pictures of current projects and behind the scenes stuff. But for now, thanks for watching.